Nutrition and Dietetics at UNL, and I'll be going across the world. I'm getting my master's degree in Australia come February. So I'm super excited, and the topic that we're talking about today is one that I'm very, very passionate about, and one that I talk to a lot of my clients about, because food, fitness, and productivity are so intertwined. Has anybody skipped breakfast and had no time for breakfast, came to work, and absolutely felt like garbage all day? It happens a lot. So that's one connection we can start to make. Another connection is if we start to maybe eat out more than we'd like to, or skip breakfast more than we like to, rely a lot on caffeine for our energy. Who goes to the gym after they get off of work? Well, good for you guys, but that's not very many people, because they come up with these excuses. I'm too tired. Oh, I'm so hungry, I have to go home and eat first. Then they eat, they put on their pajamas, start the Netflix, and then they don't want to work out anymore. So food and fitness are very intertwined, and we often think about how they work together in terms of our health, but we don't think about how they affect our productivity at work, and how it affects how we interact with each other. Who wants to go ask for a raise if all that boss is eating for the day is a Pop-Tart? Not me. I want to go if they've had a 5-star breakfast, maybe a snack, got 5 hours, or not 5 hours, 8 hours of sleep. So you want to speak to somebody who's had those things taken care of and they're not irritable just because they didn't eat breakfast or they didn't get as much sleep. So all of these things are connected, and that's what today is about. And so I wanted to share a story just to make it a little bit more relatable. A family member of mine, she is 34 years old. So this makes it super relatable because a lot of people think that they can wait for a certain time or wait for a certain instance in their life to start caring about their health, start caring about what they're putting in their bodies, how they move their bodies. Well, this family member of mine is 34, and at 33, she was diagnosed with a fibroid in her uterus. And then she had that surgery removed. She's been struggling with her weight for years and years and years. She struggles with depression, hypertension, and as a result, she also has PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. And so what happened with her, she kind of fell into this trap of fad dieting and trying to lose weight really quickly, not finding sustainable habits that work for her, not really being very active, so she didn't really rely on physical activity. She was really just relying on either supplements or restricting her calories, the dreaded HCG diet. Has anybody heard of that? It's awful, so if you ever get talked into doing it, just run the other way. It's a diet where you get a human cortical growth hormone injection. It's supposed to reduce your hunger, and then as a result, you have 500 calories, 500 to 800, depending, I think. And you eat those 500 to 800 calories, and you're advised not to work out ever during this time, and you're supposed to lose just an absurd amount of weight, which most people do, because that's, a meal and a half maybe. So they're eating very little calories, and they lose a lot of weight, but then afterwards, nobody can subsist off of 500 calories for the remainder of their life. So then once they're done eating those 500 calories for maybe, I think it's 2 weeks or maybe a month at a time that you can be on this HCG program, you lose a lot of weight and then you go back to your normal eating habits. And so you didn't develop any healthy habits, you just kind of just stopped eating in general. So she put on that weight and then some. So just a little bit of background in terms of how your metabolism works. It's very, very important to take care of your body and to take care of your metabolism. So when you're going on a diet like that with very restricted calories, you do lose body fat. So you are losing fat, which is the ultimate goal for most people. But what you're losing more of is muscle and water. So your body starts to break down all of the glycogen or the carbs that you've stored in your muscle. And then once it's done with that, it has to break down its own muscle tissue. So then it's breaking down its own muscle tissue to turn those amino acids into glucose, or basically sugar, so your body can use that for energy. So then once it's continuing to break down the muscle tissue, it's using muscle, it's using stored body fat, but the body's much more efficient at breaking down muscle than it is at releasing stored body fat, especially if you're not eating. Because if you're not eating, the body says, holy moly, we're in a famine right now. Everything that we eat, we need to make sure that we're storing and holding on to. So your body's really reluctant to give up fat if you're in a very extreme calorie deficit, because it's viewing it as a very extreme stressful situation that requires it to be defensive. So as she loses all of that muscle, for example, her metabolism is severely slowed down. So that's where you get this yo-yo dieting, where you get someone who's losing weight rapidly and then gaining back double. And then they're dissatisfied again. So they try to embark on that same program. They lose a lot of weight and then they gain back quadruple the amount. So they're always struggling with these habits because they're losing a lot of weight, losing a lot of muscle, and then gaining a lot of it back. So imagine the damage that does to your metabolism and the damage that does to your body and the organs in general. And we often don't think about that because typically the goals that we make don't have very much depth to them. We make goals like, I want to decrease my body fat, or I want to lose weight. And especially right now, the goal that we have is, we'll hear it all the time, lose weight, I want to lose 80 pounds, I want to lose 50 pounds. And the problem with that goal is it doesn't tell you how to make it happen. It doesn't outline any of the behaviors that you have to start cultivating in your own life to really make that happen for you. And so what I work with my individual clients is, when they come to me and say that they want to lose weight, I honor that. That's an awesome goal. It takes a lot of courage to come to somebody and say that, because obviously a lot of insecurities and vulnerabilities come into that. But we have to go further. You have to say, okay, why is weight loss important to me? Why do I care about how much I weigh? Because truly, we're told all the time, don't care what other people think, just care what you think. And if you're totally satisfied, then why does it matter? But there is so much depth to creating goals like, I want to live longer. I want to decrease my risk for disease, because it's integral to everything that we do. If we can't take care of our health, we can't perform our duties on the job. If we wake up in the morning sick as a dog, and like we're managers or we're in a very significant role on the job, that puts a lot of stress on us. And especially if we are a family member, like a mother of children or a father, it's not just us anymore. We have to take care of our work life, and then we have to take care of our home life. So then all of these responsibilities start to build up. And then as your health fails you, we can't perform any of the responsibilities that we have. So we'll get back to my family member. So with all of those health issues, not only is she really struggling now with her own health, and she has yet to make the connection between her diet and physical activity, but she's just riddled with financial debt because of all of the doctor bills that she's now accrued over that time. So one of the excuses that I hear all the time is, well, eating healthy is so expensive. Well, I would argue that it's expensive not to, because if we don't invest in ourselves now, years down the road, we're going to be spending thousands of dollars on medical bills. So it is something that we have to focus about, no matter what age or where we are on the spectrum, whether you're in your 20s or whether you're in your 60s, 70s. Health is important, and sometimes it's too late. Like for my aunt, who's 34, it's already almost too late for her to really turn around and make these changes because her health is failing her so poorly. And it's terrible, and she still struggles to make those commitments to herself to eat healthy and to exercise because she has the mindset that she has to eat 500 calories, that she has to struggles immensely to see those changes take place, when really it just starts with one small change. It starts with, maybe if you're skipping breakfast, you wake up in the morning and have 2 eggs instead of nothing at all. Or maybe it starts with trying to do those, I know that they have those programs now, like Eat Source Fit. Maybe for a while just to get your mind right, just to make sure that you're getting some good nutrition while you're trying to figure out how it's going to work for your lifestyle. Doing something like that, investing in yourself now before you have to invest in yourself later, before you can't take care of yourself anymore and a doctor has to do it for you. So I wanted to open with that just to get everybody on the same page, because it is important. And I sometimes think that because you hear it all the time, especially around this time of year, lose 7 pounds in 7 days, lose 20 pounds in 10 days, lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. We hear it all the time. We hear ads for supplements, we hear ads for gyms. It's just overwhelming that we start to lose meaning in all of the repetition. We think that it's not important. We think, oh, whatever, I'm fine. I'm at healthy weight, my blood pressure's fine, my doctor says I'm okay. I can eat McDonald's whenever I want, and it seems that it's fine. Or like my dad, who skips, even though he has a nutritionist as a daughter, he'll skip meals, and I'm like, no, Dad! So I'm on his case all the time. But it starts to lose meaning. So I wanted to start by giving this presentation meaning, and hopefully giving it some meaning to you as well. Because I want you to think back now and think about what you had for breakfast today. Did anybody skip breakfast today? Good, we have breakfast eaters. Okay, so even if you don't skip breakfast, what you eat in the morning plays a huge role in how you perform on the job, in your family role, all day. So for instance, if you eat nothing at all and you go to work and you're used to doing that, I guarantee you, you're not going to be performing at your best. You're going to be a little slower, you're going to be a little bit sleepy, lethargic, you're going to be reaching for coffee, And always having to kind of redirect your focus, because you're going to be either thinking about, oh my gosh, my stomach is so grumbly and I can't eat until 11:30. So you're always going to be kind of distracted, and then you might become irritable. So then somebody comes into your office, or somebody comes in, like maybe it's a disgruntled customer. You're going to let that disgruntled customer completely ruin your day because you didn't eat breakfast, when really if you would have had breakfast, and this is just a hypothetical situation, but then if you might have had breakfast, you would have been able to clearly and calmly handle the situation instead of letting it affect you so personally. Does that kind of make sense? Because you wouldn't be so bothered by not having breakfast or being so hungry, or maybe being totally overdosed on caffeine. So that's one thing. But then another thing is if you're eating too much sugar, it can also affect you that same way. Because you're going to have a huge energy boost at first, and then that respective crash is going to be the worst thing in the world. So you're going to really start crashing mid-morning, maybe you start yawning, again, having to redirect your focus, not being on task, trying to multitask and then getting totally lost in what you're doing. So maybe you're trying to answer emails, but you remember, oh crap, I was supposed to call that person. So just totally spacey. And then there could be the other thing where you're maybe eating too much in the morning, so then you can't perform well. So what you eat in the morning plays a huge role in how you function on the job. And then we think about it too, lunch. I really have to work with my clients on getting them to take time for lunch. And here, I mean, this is kind of an outstanding circumstance, but because we're meeting during the lunch hour. But it's really important to give yourself time to take a lunch, whether that be 10 minutes or whether that be 20 minutes. I hear a lot of people say that they work through lunch, or they eat while they're working. And it's so important to have that distinctive break for your productivity's sake, because often if we take a step back from something, we can come back to it with a clearer mindset. So we are more productive. It's like when you go on vacation for a week and then you come back to work and you're just ready to be at work because you had that refresher. Give that to yourself more often, even if it's just a 20-minute work lunch break. Do you guys get lunch breaks fairly regularly? That's good. Good. And you get to spend it with me today. That's cool. Okay, so what we eat plays a huge role in how we perform, and I know I'm going to totally pick on some people today. If you're having fast food for lunch, or say you have fast food and pop, you're going to feel a little heavier for the rest of your day, and you might not be at the tip-top shape of your mental cognitive performance for the rest of the day. And I don't mean that in a negative way, because I know probably it's not an everyday thing. But if it has become an everyday thing, you almost forget that it affects you in a certain way. Has anybody tried anything like a paleo diet or a Whole30 diet or anything like that? Okay, yeah, so when you're doing something like that, you pretty much rid yourself of fast food, processed foods, things like that. And one of the biggest positive stories you'll hear from that is their mental clarity is so much better. So they wake up in the morning and they don't need caffeine. Like you eat something, you get your energy from food, or you get your energy from getting enough sleep and eating enough fruits and vegetables. The way that you think is better. You get less headaches, you get less foggy, you can think of things faster, you don't lose words as quickly. So that was one of the most fascinating side effects that I kind of wanted to investigate myself. And it's so true, because if you're consuming too much sugar, too much salt, or too many fried foods, especially with caffeine, you're kind of spacey. It's just kind of all over, kind of foggy, and we don't realize that until we have stopped eating the foods, and then we incorporate them in slowly. It's kind of the concept of an elimination diet for those who might have food allergies. Well, you have to give yourself 3 weeks of following this program without the food before you introduce it back in to see, okay, how is this food really affecting me? And that's so fascinating, because we adjust. If we're constantly giving our body a lot of sugar and a lot of junk food, the body's going to adapt and adjust, and you won't realize how good you can feel without all that stuff. So that is definitely one thing to think about. With food comes irritability, comes headaches, comes indigestion. And if you're suffering with those things on the job, you can only imagine how miserable your workday is going to be. So you don't want to be struggling with those things. And one of the best ways that you can do that is to eat better. And we will talk about a few different things. So on the second page of this little handout here, when you're thinking about, okay, what is the connection? Hopefully I've kind of gotten to the point that it is truly all connected. Eating healthy and balanced meals is so connected to controlling your blood sugar levels. And that's one other topic that I wanted to talk to you about today. Hopefully I don't lose anybody, but I think it's important to realize the importance of maintaining regular blood sugar levels and balanced blood sugar levels. So when we're talking about consuming a Pop-Tart and a cup of coffee in the morning, your blood sugar levels are going to skyrocket because all that is carbohydrate and sugar. And carbohydrates are broken down into glucose. And so glucose is going to flood your bloodstream along with fructose, these simple sugars, and then as a response, your pancreas has to produce insulin. And this massive insurgence of insulin is what's causing you to feel tired. So if you're thinking about after you have a big meal, think Thanksgiving or Christmas, all of that having to be digested at one time, very similar to having too much sugar in your bloodstream. So your body's going to be working very hard to bring your blood sugar levels back down. So you're going to have a lot of insulin being produced by your pancreas. And in my family member's case, if you have something like PCOS or anything, or pre-diabetes, and you have an insulin resistance, well then your pancreas is even going to be producing more insulin. So insulin, fun fact, is a storage hormone. So if you have elevated insulin levels consistently, your body's going to be in a storage state. So with your calories, it's going to be thinking, okay, well, we can only store so much of this in your muscles and in your liver, so the rest of it has to get turned to like triglyceride or fat, because we have an unlimited, thankfully, right, amount of adipose tissue. We can make new fat cells, but we can't ever get rid of them. We just shrink them after that. So it's so important to maintain a healthy weight long term. You don't want to go from gaining a lot of weight to losing a lot of weight, because you never lose those fat cells. They just get smaller. So then it makes it even easier for you to gain the weight back. So that's blood sugar levels. So when you're consuming something that's high in sugar, you produce a lot of insulin, you bring it back down, but then you crash. And so if you're used to eating a lot of sugar, the first thing you're going to reach for again is more sugar. So it's just this vicious cycle where you're just giving yourself more sugar, producing more insulin, storing more body fat. And because the average American eats about 24 to 26 teaspoons of added sugar, it adds up to a lot. The average Australian eats 48 teaspoons of added sugar. And it's unknowingly, because if you think about like a Jamba Juice or a Juiced Up, how many people would think, oh yeah, that's healthy because it's fruit? Most people, but the problem is a lot of it's coming from juice. They do have some fruit added to it, but you're not getting a lot of fiber with those, and that could be anywhere between 48 to 60 grams of sugar all in one shot. So you might be thinking, oh, I'm getting a healthy juice for my lunch because I don't have a whole lot of time, when in reality you're just flooding your bloodstream with sugar. So that's one thing to think about, because we want to maintain blood sugar levels. And so when you're thinking about how do I do that? What foods do I eat then? There's a tool that was developed to help diabetics called the glycemic index. Have you guys heard of that? So the glycemic index has been, and it's pretty effective and fairly updated. So if you use that, it kind of shows you which foods are going to increase my blood sugar levels, which foods are going to respond in my body as my pancreas produces a bunch of insulin, because we don't want to do that, especially if you are type 1 diabetic and your body doesn't produce insulin. You have to know about that so you can administer the correct amount. So the glycemic index is designed to show people, okay, what foods are low on the glycemic index, what foods are going to digest slowly and absorb slowly so my blood sugar levels don't rise as fast. So anything 50 or below is going to be pretty low on the glycemic index. Between 50 and 70 is going to be mid-range, and then 70 or above is going to be pretty high. So think white toast or white rice, white potatoes. And then if you're trying to think of some maybe things that are low glycemic index, think beans or quinoa or lentils, broccoli, cauliflower, these things that we can start incorporating in. But there is such a thing as the glycemic load. So when you're thinking about the whole meal, if you have a protein combined with white rice, that's going to overall lower the glycemic load. So you're having a protein, which is going to digest slower than the rice, but as a whole, the stomach is going to empty slower. So then those everything gets broken down into smaller pieces. So when you're thinking carbohydrates, protein, and fats, they all get broken down into smaller little molecules. But if they're together in the stomach, where the stomach doesn't digest protein very quickly, it's going to be released a lot slower. The stomach is going to empty slower. Does that make sense? Okay. So we want to combine meals with all three macronutrients. That's one of the problems with these low-carb diets, low-fat diets, is because they pick on one macronutrient in a response to try to get you to lower your calories. Because if you think about it, if somebody's eating too much, well, the easiest way would be to just take out one macronutrient then, because then they'll eat less calories, they'll eat a third less calories. But it just doesn't work that way, because if you take out carbohydrates, you're going to crave carbohydrates. And that's going to make you irritable. And your body needs carbs. The carbohydrates are the fastest source of energy for your body. You just want to choose the right kinds. And then if you take out fat, all of your food, essentially, especially if you're not eating enough protein, is going to lose that satiation factor. So you're not going to feel full after you eat because there wasn't enough fat in your food. Because anybody just had a salad for lunch and thought, yeah, I'm going to be hungry in an hour. And that's because unless you had like this really full fat salad dressing, you're not going to be full. And there's no protein on the salad especially. So those types of things you want to start thinking about in terms of the composition of your meals to balance your blood sugars. Because balanced blood sugars mean sustained energy. If our blood sugars are constantly up and down, we're going to be experiencing energy spikes and energy dips right along with our blood sugars. So that's one of the reasons. And why do we want sustained energy? Because we perform better. Why do we want sustained energy? Because we'll have the motivation to work out. Who wants to work out if they're exhausted? Not many people. Some people have that intrinsic motivation within them that they can work out no matter how tired they are, but that's not the general population. The general population is exhausted and lethargic because they eat junk all the time. I mean, we've got 2/3 of the population that are struggling to maintain a healthy weight. And not that they're all there because they eat junk food. I mean, I'm not naive enough to think that everybody who struggles with their weight is only eating junk food. But our environment sets us up to fail, am I right? Like, we go to the grocery store with the best intentions. We walk down the aisle and they're advertising you Dorito-flavored Reuben sandwiches or something. Like, just the weirdest things. And they have, like, Twinkies are on sale all the time, or Ho-Hos, or all of these, like, really processed, heavily processed, high-sugar foods. They're the ones that are on sale. And then you walk to the produce and you're like, oh my God, $2.99 for a pound of apples? I better just stick with the Doritos. You know, like, that's the environment that we live in. The environment that we live in has fast food on every block. So if we forgot lunch, instead of saying, well, yeah, I could go get the healthy option, but I mean, Taco Inn's just right down the street. I mean, because truly, that's just the environment that we live in. And the minute we decide, okay, yeah, the nutrition part is going to be hard. The workout part is pretty easy. Once we get our mind right, once we're like, yeah, I want this to happen. I want to work out. Working out's an hour of your day. The nutrition part, you leave the gym and you pass a Burger King. You know, like that's our world. So we have to really think about what we eat. How does it affect our body? How do I feel when I eat a certain food? And those are silly things to think about. I think it can get really mushy really fast for me because it's something that we should all be so passionate about. Because when we put junk in our body, just imagine if you were to put French fries into your car. It wouldn't run very well. Probably wouldn't run at all. But we put that into our bodies with no second thought sometimes. Just because it's something that we get so addicted to. We crave the sugar, we crave the salt, we crave the oils that it's fried in. And that's what it was designed to do. That's how they make money. We live in a world that thrives off us being sick. So we live in a world that wants us to be sick. Because if we're not sick, then the pharmaceutical companies go out of business. If we're not sick, then we have no need to have a doctor, and then they lose money. And if we're not sick, then we don't have, like, who's gonna have fast food industries? How are they gonna make billions of dollars every year? Because the fast food industry makes billions of dollars, but so does the diet industry. So tell me how that world exists, because we are filling our body with all of this cheap, easy food, and then relying on these really expensive pills or really expensive diet plans, really expensive protocols to help us fix what we've done. When really, if we just came into the middle, we'd probably be saving a lot of money and be saving ourselves a lot of struggles, because nobody really likes to wake up in the morning and feel bad about themselves, but so many people do. So many people wake up in the morning unsatisfied with where they are. And that just breaks my heart, because for me, it's just saying, okay, yeah, you guys, the diet industry and the fast food industry wants me to be sick. I don't want to be sick anymore. I don't want to wake up feeling like this anymore, so I'm going to make a change. And that's what you want to just bottle that feeling up and just carry it with you, because everywhere you go, there's going to be somebody trying to oh, but let's go to here for lunch. Or you'll walk down the aisle and think, oh, I really loved those. I really want those. You'll be always tempted by something. So the more power you have, the more you know about food and how it runs and how you digest it, how you metabolize it, the more power you have over the food. Because I know that a lot of it comes down to our mindset. We get cravings for things. We feel like we don't have enough willpower, and we can't really overcome those things. But you can. You just have to channel within you and realize, okay, well, why? It goes back to those goals, not the weight loss goals, but the ones that had depth. Why do you want this? Why do you want to lose weight? Why do you want better health? Things like that. I want to be a good role model for my kids. I want to be able to play with my children. I want to be able to see my grandchildren. I want to be able to do things that matter to you, essentially. And all of that is going to be tied into your productivity and to your motivation on and off the clock. So if you're not motivated off the clock, then you're not going to be motivated to play with your kids. You're going to give them an iPad and say, here you go, stop bothering me because I'm tired from work. So it really plays into so many facets of your life. It's not, and that's how it's really all intricately connected, and that's when it becomes overwhelming. So we just want to start with one piece at a time. And that's where I start with breakfast. Because some people say, yes, that's the most important meal of the day, and I argue that too, because that's what starts your entire day. That's what starts your 12-hour period of life. So you want to start choosing better things. Old-fashioned oats and sugary cereals. We can kind of see which one would be better. But now we kind of know why one is better than the other, because old-fashioned oats are going to be lower on the glycemic index, whereas Fruit Loops are going to be really high on the glycemic index. And they're not going to be filling. Who has one bowl of cereal at a time? Not many people. Usually you have to have 6 bowls of cereal before you're full. So choosing something like oatmeal, pair it with eggs, or pair it with some sort of parfait or something. One example, my favorite breakfast, like every morning essentially, because I'm so boring, I have 2 eggs, oatmeal with a banana, and some sunflower seed butter. So I've got protein, and I've got carbs, and I've got a lot of healthy fat to keep me full until noon or 1. So you want to choose something that is going to keep you full, and it's not going to totally overdo it, so you're not kind of like Thanksgiving meal tummy all day. And you want to include a good source of protein. And the 2 best ones that I really put into the meal plans that I create are eggs and Greek yogurt. Eggs are really great because there are so many versatile ways that you can prepare them. So you could do just preparing them in a skillet, or you can make those egg muffins. Has anybody done those? Where you just put vegetables